What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we're joined by a new guest, but longtime friend. I've known Dylan for quite some time now. But real quick side note to note before we get going here. This episode is going to kick off a couple series long of audio only episodes. We are experimenting with going in between softwares, so we are apologizing in advance for the issues caused and you not being able to take in our media quite as you'd like to ingest it. Without further ado, we'd like to introduce Dylan right around the 20 mark. I've known Dylan for probably just about 10 years now. Yeah, we go way
hmm
back. So if you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me on the Slanted Attic. I've been a big fan for a while now. I've been a big fan of everything that you do. I always like to support old friends. So yeah, like Tyler said, we've known each other for about 10 years now. Since I was 10 years old, he was one of my first kind of mentors. Honestly, dude, we started playing video games together, and he was just the nicest guy. And we probably played together for what 3, 4 years straight.
At
Um,
least.
Yeah, and one thing that I love about Tyler and we're pretty similar in the same way that we always, like to try new things, and
Hmm.
he's always supported me with everything I've done. What you used to those TV show things, right? On campus?
Yeah, that's right. It was called the Black Sheep. I did that
Yeah.
for about 6 months. I went around interviewing kids at the. It wasn't the big event. It was called the Gobbler Fest at Virginia Tech, and it was basically. I'm sure every college has one of these where it's a big campus-wide event. All the student unions and campus events and groups bring out, a bunch of the pop-up tents, and they have a bunch of free shit to give away to everybody. You kind of meet and greet. So, yeah, that's a funny story that actually hasn't got brought up here before. Funny enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I went around and interviewed a bunch of kids. That's still available on YouTube if you'd like to go see that. I'm sure somebody could find it.
Yeah, but I always had pride in myself for being a supportive person, and so me and you always try new things. You supported me big time whenever I made that website a few years ago, and
Yeah, man.
yeah, man. So I'm just happy to be on. To give a little background on myself, I'm 20 years old. I'm a sophomore going into my junior year at the University of Alabama. I study computer science, and yeah, that's about me.
Yeah, dude. Well, I appreciate those kind words. Always, we've known each other for a minute now, and although we've never met in person, actually, I'd love to plan something sometime in the future. To be honest
Absolutely.
with you, um, I've been trying to get around and travel a bunch of the U.S. And outside recently. My girlfriend's been a huge proponent of that. Her and her family traveled more than my family ever did. In
Yeah.
my 23 years of life before I knew her. But anyways, let's actually chat a little bit about how we got to know each other playing what was it, Black Ops 3, I believe
Black
was
Ops
the
3.
first game.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't even remember how we met through the game, probably just in a lobby or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Black Ops 3 was I was so young. It was my first game, and so I was really just figuring out how Call of Duty and gaming in general even worked, and
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I love that game.
Yeah, man, you got hooked into that. What was I gonna say? Yeah, back to Black Ops 3. So, that would have been my 3rd or 4th Call of Duty at that point. I, joined the age of gaming at the age of, what, 13 when Black Ops 1 first came out. I remember getting that for Christmas with my, PlayStation 3, and, the reason why I chose that at the time was because the, multiplayer online was free for PlayStation, but, it was a pay or add-on service for, Microsoft. So that's how I convinced my parents to get me a PS3 Christmas that year. Anyways, fast forward, what? A COD's one game a year.
Yeah.
So that would have been 3 years later. We come into Black Ops 3, and that would have been the second game to introduce the thruster based movement behind
Yes.
Advanced Warfare,
Advanced
I
Warfare.
believe.
Yeah.
Yep. And Advanced Warfare, to be honest, in my opinion, was a pretty shitty game. So having that movement system in Black Ops 3 was kind of awesome, man. That's one of my
It was
favorite
so
games of
sick.
all
It
time.
was so funny to me because I didn't even realize what the other games even were. I didn't realize that it was such a
Right.
change up having all the thruster and the movement and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that, that goes down as probably my most played Call of Duty ever and one of my most favorites. I
Oh yeah.
would have to give the edge to Black Ops 2, though. I think that was my all-time favorite because I think I was 15 at that point, so I was right in the era of, like, I'm a freshman, sophomore, this tiny nerdy kid in high school, and I was just ripping video games, So, yeah, man, good times. I do miss it a lot. I wish I do have some times for games now. I play Rocket League and Fortnite a little bit still. For those of you out there that are interested, you can find me. My gamer tag is Shawprof. So if anybody wants to add me out there and
Man, you
carry
know
me.
what? I don't have many time for video games anymore either, but when I do, it's pretty much all Minecraft, man.
Oh
Man,
yes.
Minecraft is just an awesome game. There's so much to do. You can get absolutely lost in a world of Minecraft.
Oh yeah. I love Minecraft. I don't know if you would have ever met my buddy Hunter, via online games, but him and I still play that.
Really?
And
Yeah.
then yeah, and then Fortnite introduced the Lego version, which is a lot like that
Yeah,
Minecraft
is that
base.
fun? Is that I remember playing that on like the very first day it came out, and I had a hard time with the day night thing. It was terrible.
Mhm.
I couldn't even get going because it would get night, and then it was cold, and you couldn't walk anywhere, and I couldn't get any food.
Yep. Yep. They have fixed a few things, in, concurrent updates,
Yeah,
but I would still say it's a shittier, dumbed down version of Minecraft. Minecraft's
gotcha.
way more exploratory, I think is a good word. You can manipulate a lot more things. You can create more. It's a longer, more in-depth game. So,
Oh, absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, something like the Lego Fortnite's meant to draw a lot of that, I would say probably middle school, elementary school, middle school user base from Minecraft into onto a platform like Fortnite, because they acquired Rocket League, they have this turbo racing, they've got the Guitar Hero type thing, yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and want to be like publicly traded, kind of like
Oh,
the
I
Reddit
wouldn't be
IPO
surprised.
thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all either. They have such a user base that it is just incredible.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's wild. I mean, dude, last time I looked, and maybe I can pull this up now, but there's still like 50 million active daily players of Fortnite.
Really, even still. No, it's funny because I think I kind of forgot about the Lego Minecraft, or not Lego Minecraft, Lego Fortnite. Because I remember in the very beginning, people were learning how to create those flying machines and things like that. But I don't think I ever saw anybody really evolve on that game. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
what all you can do now.
I think the problem was it's pretty finite, I guess is a good way to put it. They didn't really add in anything beyond those types of things. And me and my buddy grinded that for hours one
Really?
weekend when my
Yeah.
girlfriend was out of town, and like, I put 20 hours into it and I'm still no closer to completing the game and doing that stuff. So I don't know. I prefer stuff like Minecraft where it's
Oh
not
yeah.
necessarily linearly based like the Lego Fortnite is. I mean, you pretty much have to go from thing to thing and upgrade each village and add stuff to your villages and farm food and kill beasts, whatever. It's like pretty set out, and there's already a walkthrough or a gameplay
Yeah,
method
I see what
to
you
the
mean.
madness.
Yeah.
Like Minecraft is so sporadic and all over the place. You can do whatever you want in a game like that.
Well,
That's why.
one of my buddies actually. He's one of my best friends. I've played games with him for years, and he's never played Minecraft before, and I was
No
just shocked
way.
that he had no idea how any of it worked. And so me and him just started a survival world about a week ago, and I mean it's tough to have to explain to somebody like the utter basics because it's just so much goes into this game that
Oh
it's
yeah.
pretty easy to learn once if you've been around the game for 10 years like we have. But I was trying to tell him, I was like, there, you can do anything that you enjoy. I was like, if you
Oh
just want
yeah.
to sit around and just dye sheep different colors and get a collection of wool going, you can do that. If you want to, trade with the villagers, you can do that. If you want to be a speedrunner and try to go beat the game and beat all the beasts, then we can do that. We can
Right.
literally do whatever you want to do. Like however hard you want the game to be, you can make it that hard. You can make it easy. So that's
Mhm.
what I love about it.
Yeah, it's so simplistic, but also incredibly creative. That
Oh
just
yeah.
blows my mind that your buddy didn't know about it. I mean, this has been one of the top games for like 10 years or something now, hasn't it?
he had heard of it, but it was one of those things where he was spiteful and not learning about it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. He was the same
Yeah,
way with like Breaking Bad. He just started watching Breaking Bad, and he
dude.
had told himself for years, like, "Oh, I'm never gonna watch that show." And then, so he was the same thing. He was the same way with Minecraft. He intentionally didn't want to know anything about it because he thought it was stupid, and so but
Yep.
it was tough to have to get to explain to him, this is how you make a crafting table, and I'd
Right.
start over. I had to start over in 2010 with him.
That's right, man. Yeah. Well, I can tell you that what you just described sounds very similar to myself sometimes, but that's one of my things I do pride myself on, my willingness to change my opinion. So
Yes,
I was willing to die on the Breaking Bad hill, and then I watched it, and it's my favorite show of all time.
I was the same way. I intentionally didn't watch it because that was just like, there's no way it's that good. And then I
Mhm.
watched it, and it's my favorite show as well.
Yeah, dude. It's I forget who I just talked to this about with. I don't think it was on the podcast, but I mean it's just a perfect show in my opinion. Perfect story arcs. All of the characters develop phenomenally and they meet their end or finish the show in the
Yeah.
correct way that I see it personally. Um the hype, the thrill, the adrenaline rush was there in all of the important parts. I think the sound design and the audio design was fucking phenomenal. The settings were great. The background was played out nice. And it just everything was written beautifully, produced, edited. I just, it's tough for me not to see that as one of the best shows of all time.
Oh, absolutely. In the same way, I think the setting is awesome. I love the desert, New Mexico kind of vibe it
Yeah,
has to it. I
dude.
love the houses. Like they show a lot whenever they go to Hank and Marie's house. The end of that little cul-de-sac that they live on.
Yep.
Um, those houses are just so cool. I think it's such a cool setting, especially being close to the southern border, and the
Hmm.
cartel and how all those play in. I think it's just perfect. You're totally
Yeah.
right about the sound design and the writing, because it you don't really like any of the characters, and that's something I think the
Yeah.
show does beautifully. Like towards the end, like when you start it, you like Walt and you like Jesse, but then you kind of learn that you know these guys kind of all suck.
Yeah, I'm a huge Walt Homer though. I mean, I loved him the whole time, even though he's a fucking devil. He was
Did you
awesome.
finish everything? Did you watch El Camino and Better Call Saul and everything?
Yep, I've seen everything. To preface that a little bit, I wanted to tell you two things before we continue this conversation. The average estimated count of players or active users on Fortnite are 30 million for all four
That's
game modes.
that's
Um,
incredible.
and then two, my buddy was stationed in Albuquerque. He's in the Air Force. He was flying planes there for a minute. I'm not sure where he is now. I think he has moved since then. He would send me photos of the Breaking Bad RV, and they do RV tours all around the town to all the significant locations, like the shooting
Are you kidding
locations
me?
for the show in the RV. Well, I'm sure it's not the RV, but they
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
dress
But
it with.
the house, the Negro Royal Lane, like that's a real location, correct? Like you can
I
actually, like,
believe
somebody
so.
owns that home. Yeah, I think I've seen
Let's
that
see.
before.
Hank and Marie house in real
Well, it wouldn't
life.
be that one. It would have been Walton Scars house.
The Walton Schuyler's. During the iconic television show Breaking Bad, Walter White called Albuquerque home. Walter and Schuyler's home on the show, located at 308 Negro Arroyo Lane, is a private residence actually located at 3828 Piermont Drive in Albuquerque. Yes, people do
Wow.
live there.
Okay, that is so funny. Can you imagine living in their house?
No. I mean, everybody in the world would know the layout of their exact house, bro.
Oh, exactly.
It'd be
Yeah.
I'd put on a ski mask and just hop in one of the windows, man. I know the
Oh,
layout
exactly.
already.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got the money hiding in the duct in the baby's room, dude.
Oh yeah.
You know where it's at. Anyway, that's probably my favorite show of all time. I'm really into like the psychological thrillers. I
Oh
love
yeah.
anything that'll get me thinking a little bit.
I'm the same way. I'm not a fan of relaxed TV watching. I'm subtitles on,
Yes.
focused,
Yes.
locked in whole time.
Dude, 100%, dude. I feel like not enough casual, I don't want to say casual TV watchers, but as like a game player, right? Like I'm intently focused on that, right? There's
Absolutely.
background
Yeah.
TV and then there's TV to be watching. I
Yes.
don't like when people interrupt the show. I have the subtitles on the whole time as well, and I'm engrossed. I'm there to pay attention, right? If I'm making dinner or doing something else, Grace and I watch a lot of sports, so we
Yeah.
typically have TV or not TV. The TV is on. We have golf, baseball, or football on. Those are our
Yeah.
big three.
I'm the same. I'm the same way. Some of my close buddies at college, one of them, we always used to make fun of him because he'd never seen any movie. I mean, you could have said
That was me.
anything and he would have no idea. It was me for a while too, but once you start to watch those classic movies, it's kind of hard
Mm,
to listen to somebody say they've never seen them before. And
mhm.
so every Monday or Tuesday night, we'd always watch a movie, and it was funny because the first few movies he was on his phone and subtitles weren't on, which I'm a big subtitle cop.
Huge,
I I I
huge
I,
subtitle
I I
guy.
literally I literally won't I literally will not watch a movie if the subtitles are not on,
Yep.
especially a new movie because it just drives me crazy not knowing everything. Like I
Yeah.
need to I need to see the
100%.
words in order to follow what's going on. But
Yes.
anyway, so we went down the rabbit hole. We watched The Godfathers, we watched all of that, and
Yes.
now he's exactly like me. We're lights off, phones in another room, subtitles on, and we're we're absent from the outside world for a couple of hours.
Yeah, man. The subtitles thing is so big for me. I'm a relatively quick reader, so I'm processing what's happening via the
Yes,
subtitles and then watching
yes,
what's
and
happening
then
in the
watching
show.
it. That's exactly what I did too.
It
Yes,
it
I
it gives yeah, it gives me such good context as to what's going on. You may miss a word here or there. You may
absolutely.
look at a
Yep,
flickering light in the other room. Yeah, so much.
especially with tough shows to follow like Game of Thrones or The Godfather, things like that are hard to follow. I remember because I can't mention The Godfather, but the first movie we watched was The Godfather, and that opening scene, where Vito's like petting the cat, in his office, and
Mm,
you can't even understand what Marlon Brando is even saying without subtitles. I've just
yes.
gotten so accustomed to just reading it and then watching that it just feels like it's destroying the movie experience for others. Because if I'm like, if I can't understand what's going on, and they don't understand what's going on, and then as somebody who's trying to show the movie, you're like freaking out, like, are they going to
Right.
understand this? Are they going to enjoy this as much as I do? You know?
Right, absolutely, and The Godfather was a huge staple for me. Grace got me more into movies, even more so than, my college experience. This was, senior-ish year into, current 9 to 5 regular employee workforce, type shit, which, by the way, you should stay in college as long as you can. Hopefully, out the student debt here in the next 15 years, and it won't matter. But, yeah, she got me into the classics. Good Will Hunting is one of my
Yep.
favorites. She showed me The
Yep.
Godfathers. I'm trying to think. Scarface, I loved. Um, oh my god. Uh, all of the, Tarantino movies, like, Pulp Fiction, The
Yep.
Kill Bills.
Reservoir
Um,
Dogs. That's one of my
yes,
favorites.
that's the one I
I
was
love
thinking
that
of.
movie.
That
It's short
movie
and sweet. That's the
phenomenal.
perfect movie if you have an hour and a half
Yes.
and you want to show somebody Tarantino. He's terrible at acting. It's so funny that he's
True.
in that movie himself. He's a horrible actor, but
Oh, yeah.
he's an incredible director.
Yeah, I think, I did listen to his podcast episode on the Joe Rogan Experience. I don't know if you listened to that at all, but, he was talking about his development through all of that stuff, and he was worried that it wasn't gonna take on the, correct notation in Hollywood and stuff like that, but I think it really changed the game in terms of how movies are created. His whole, script or linear timeline that gets chopped up is genius
Yes,
in my
I think
opinion.
it's
It
genius
keeps
as well. I love him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it keeps the viewers' attention spans, focused. They're always thinking because they have to. I mean, there's so many subplots going on, it's ridiculous. And, it really gives that full storyline experience, in my opinion, to the viewers.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love all of his movies.
Yeah, I haven't seen, oh my god, which one is it? The Nazi one, Inglorious
Uh,
Basterds.
yeah, Glorious Bastards. Yeah,
That's the only
yeah,
one I have not seen.
that's a good one. That's a good one. Christoph Waltz. He's incredible.
Yeah, I've heard many a good things, and, like, Just to explain my background in movie watching, it's pretty much whatever streaming services we have. If I can get access to those movies, I'm going to watch them. And Glorious Bastards left Netflix right before I caught the Tarantino bug, so I haven't been able to watch it, unfortunately.
Have you? This is funny because there's not many subtitle lovers that I've met. Do you notice a difference in what streaming service you're on and how good of quality the subtitles are? Because I'll preface this by saying the way that Netflix does subtitles is amazing. I
Yeah,
love it. HBO has good subtitles. Hulu has terrible subtitles. I
agree.
have a hard time watching on Hulu.
That's so fucking funny that you noticed that thing. I agree. I really agree. Hulus are
Yeah.
terrible. They're kinda like the live TV version. It feels like they
Yes,
don't
it's
have
like the black
somebody.
background and it's kind
Mhm.
of rolling the way that the Netflix ones feel like it's left and right. Like if you understand what I'm saying, that
Yes.
the subtitles roll off. The Hulu ones give you the impression that it's rolling up and down.
Mhm.
And you're right, it's the TV one with the black background, and sometimes the subtitles are off. Like sometimes it'll say two sentences in advance, and I'm sitting there reading the whole thing, and then I look up, and Netflix ones are perfect though. It's a crisp white,
Yep.
kind of bold white font. There's not many issues with there being a light, the show being too light, and so you can't read it. I think it's just perfect.
Yeah, and I think it really, impressionates, is that a word? Like, it really gives me impressions of the timeline of events. Like, for
Yes,
Netflix, I feel like I'm just reading the subtitles and then everything's happening. For Hulu, I'm
exactly.
reading it and then I'm waiting
Yep.
20
Yep.
seconds for that
Exactly.
to
Yep.
play out.
Yep. Yep. See, I
Mhm.
don't like it when there's a cliffhanger and, they're like, there's a cliffhanger and you're waiting on a single word and then you can read the word and then 5 seconds
Yeah.
later, then you can see it, evolve in the movie. I like when it's right on time, tracked well. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a big
Yeah.
deal.
What I was gonna say is there's no way Hulu doesn't have the access to somebody that can write a code to rearrange the subtitles the way they
Oh,
need to be.
absolutely. Yeah,
That
absolutely. I mean, we already have, large language learning models. They could easily be able to 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 make sure that everything lines up perfectly, you know?
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, it drives me nuts, man. We're trying to find ways in my industry to implement more artificial intelligence, AGI,
Yeah.
and ways to use it. It's just tough because I feel like with our current capabilities, or maybe not our current capabilities, as in the U.S. government, the world, top leaders, stuff like that, they definitely have access to better technology than I do, and my company does. But I'm saying like what we can consume I don't see any real application just yet. I'm trying to convince my
Not
bosses
just
to get
yet.
in. Correct. I'm trying to convince my bosses to get into the legal writing room of like even ChatGPT or OpenAI. Let them write you contracts, then we can go back through and edit it, refine it, teach the system to prepare stuff for us because our upper level management spends a lot of time on creating these like long form contracts to
Yeah.
clients for commercial real estate jobs.
And the good way to think about it is that is whatever you think ChatGPT could do, like whatever you think it can probably do right now, it can do. It's just not going to be available for us for 2 or 3 years, because they're
Right.
going to keep rolling out new versions of it. I mean, I remember, so right now we're on GPT-4 for the
Okay.
ChatGPT, and so the basic one is 3.5. And
Hmm.
just in the last, not now, but about 3 months ago, you could tell that GPT 3.5 had been dumbed down a lot. I mean, its reliability went down a whole lot because they were trying to spark, people to purchase GPT-4. It's about
I
$20 a
see.
month. There were so many people in my, computer science classes. It was funny. We were kind of walking around the room and we had a really hard project going on, and we started asking a couple people, and everybody had purchased GPT-4 for this
Wow.
project. And I was like, it's great that this is a tool, but now it's going to become a pay to win kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like it has the capabilities of helping us with this project. You just got to pay for it. You know?
Yep. Yep. Here's my opinion on the whole thing, and then I kind of want to ask you a couple questions about what you've been learning in school with
Yeah.
respect to what's going on in our current society with the application of all that stuff. But real quick, my opinion is that as this technology advances more and more, we have lesser of a need for human one-on-one or conversation type interaction. And I think that is going to murder like us as a population, as a whole, as a human, as a evolution of a fucking monkey from 150,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, all the way back. I need somebody that knows a lot about anthropology to run
Oh
through
yeah,
that with me.
yeah,
Anyways,
I'm here with you.
Anyways, I think that's going to very negatively impact us as humans. I don't know if it'll impact the brain over a period of say 10 years. If it'll show up in evolution. I just think it's going to be tough on everybody's social skills. We've already seen it in the past 10 years. I mean, when you and I first started playing video games, that's when Facebook, or not Facebook, that's when was it MySpace rolled out. So it was
Yeah,
right around the beginning of creation of mass social media, and I think we've seen a real large flare up in online disagreements, not necessarily hate speech, but hate speech on the internet, I guess, like people hating on each other, disagreeing, trying to get rage bait, I guess, is a
yeah, yep,
better phrase or better way to put it. And I think that is so bad for us connecting on just a human level, because I think the large majority of us, just as people, um, are on the same page, man. We just want to be nice to each other,
yep,
help
yep.
collectively form a society, and keep the ball rolling. But
I
yeah,
have
man.
two things to say about that. So I'm glad that you brought up the evolution piece of it. I mean, we're already seeing, just to give some context, my preschool teacher, we've stayed in touch over the years. Not really me, but my mom was always pretty close with
Yeah,
her, and she stopped by my graduation party 2 years ago,
that's
and we
fun.
kind of got into this conversation because she's, on the front line of seeing how these kids are developing and how they're being raised. And she was even saying that just since I was that age, 15 years ago, she's seen a noticeable decrease in, fine motor skills
Yeah.
and things like that. Like the 3-year-olds aren't able to hold, balls as well as they used to. And
Mhm.
it's absolutely because of the technology. Now, the one thing that I think you made a good point about, the how we're all on the same page. I mean, if you look up any video on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that of the Apple Vision Pro, the new
Mhm.
VR
Yep, yep, yep.
$3,000 headset that came out, most of those comments are negative. I mean,
Yep.
most of us are on the same page. Most of us start to think that's crazy. And so the hope that I have is that we're eventually going to get to the point where we say, okay, we could implement this new technology, but we're not going to. And the
Mhm.
consumers are going to not buy it, right? Because nobody, is going to want to do that. We could, at a certain level, all start wearing virtual headsets, and all the coders and programmers could make it to where everything's automated and conversations in real time are recorded. And
Yep.
I mean, we could do that all. But, in America, if you can't make money off of it, then you're not going to do it. So I think a lot of these businesses are going to come to the point where they have the capabilities to do something, but until the people want it, which I'm hoping that we don't,
Mhm.
I don't think it's really going to affect us too badly.
Yeah. I kind of agree and disagree with you. Real quick, to your point about the Apple Vision Pro, they shipped out 400,000 units and their projections were 800,000. So that's a 50% decrease. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
50% less or half, whatever. That wouldn't be a 50% decrease. I don't feel like doing math right now. Anyways, Hunter and I actually discussed something similar to this on our second show, it might have been, or the one that's getting released tomorrow. It might be next week. Um, but anyways, we were talking about the same things and how technology might be implemented into the human body, right? We've seen
Hmm.
Neuralink, we've seen what
Yeah.
Musk can do, and you brought up a lot of great points about collectively humans coming together as a whole to stop something like that. And while I think that's definitely the right way to go, and that's where I hope the future, will transgress to, I do think that we have people in power that aren't looking out for the large majority of people on this earth, which puts
Oh,
us
absolutely. Yeah.
in a very negative standing, right? His point that he brought up, he said, as more of this biotechnology becomes available, and you get implants, phone implants, recording implants, extra memory storage, stuff along those lines. you're going to start to see a larger gap in between the upper class and the middle
Mhm.
class, that we see. And for everybody that doesn't have one of these augments or modifications is going to be immediately disadvantage to all of these people. And I'm not saying right now in the world people aren't just naturally disadvantaged by their socioeconomic status, their upbringing, their location, things like
Yeah.
that obviously make an
The
impact.
gap's gonna get larger.
Yes, the gap can only get larger. And my concern with that is it already too large for us to stop type of deal? Do these people in the top already have too much control over what we see, what we hear, what we do for us to make a large jump and a large scale approach to something like that? Will they let those statuses be shared on Facebook and Instagram if it's going to be against the collective buying power of fucking Tim Cook and Elon
Yeah.
Musk? Although I think Musk is a tad different. I don't really want to get going on him right now. I've had way too
Yeah.
many discussions about Elon recently. I think he's a brilliant guy. There are some things he does wrong. However,
Yep.
I agree with him on a lot of standpoints over his advertising power and the like free speech and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you're going to see these large scale companies and businesses, not that they don't already have a stronghold on our government system and the fucking legislative branch by lobbying, or the judicial system by
Oh,
lobbying.
yeah.
That shit should be outlawed. So that's my real concern. If we can get past that, I think that's our largest, I think, hurdle to jump through as a collective society of people in, living in the US. So
Yeah, and
I don't know.
the thing that can give you some solace to that is that we still live in the majority. But when
Yes.
you think about it, they are so good at forcing us what to think. Kind of subconsciously, they force us what to buy. I mean, all it
Oh
takes
yeah.
is money. All it takes is money, and they can basically prop up any product they want.
Oh
All it
yeah.
takes is money, and they can basically force us to have any opinion that they want.
Yep.
I mean, you've seen, I don't want to go down this conversation too much, but you've seen like with musicians, how they say, what's the word where they say an industry plant? You've seen that before, like they
Yes.
say that
Industry plant. Hmm.
like Jack Harlow's an industry plant.
Yep.
I just read
Travis
something the other
Scott.
day. Yeah, what was that song that was number one like a few weeks ago? It was a Jack Harlow song. Um, I
I'm
can't
not
remember what it was
sure.
called, but basically they were saying that this is just the prime example of enough, when you put enough money into anything, it can
Hmm.
get popular,
Yeah.
and so then we
Yeah.
kind of lose our own decision making, because we're so
Yeah.
influenced by social media and ads and all that. I mean, there's a reason why advertising is as popular as it is,
Hmm.
because it works. It absolutely does.
Yeah, we lose our autonomy. We lose
Yep.
our ability to be independent thinkers because we're part of groupthink. And I just finished reading 1984 for the first time in the
Oh,
past
that's a good one.
month or
Yep.
so. I read
That'll
Animal
make
Farm.
you Yep,
Yeah.
that'll make you look differently at the world.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times I brought it up since I finished reading. I was like, "Oh my god, this applies to everything." But anyway, that book was written in the fucking 1940s, dude.
Yep.
And there's so much genius insight to what was going on there. Um My point being, um, I forget, I lost my train of thought, but I did read Animal Farm in 7th grade, and that's the reason why I wanted to read 1984 now. I was like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand it then. I've been much more involved in not necessarily current politics because I hate what's going on. I'm voting for RFK. I think he's got the best platform. I agree
Yep.
with what a lot of he says. I don't think he's old and a degenerate. So that, puts him at the top of the leaderboard right away. Anyways, I've been learning a lot more about history and political impacts and who the real players were over the past, century and a half. And that changes my perspective on everything. So
Yep.
it's been much more interesting to read books like 1984 now because I know people like Alan Dulles, if you're familiar with him, and the wrath he said about the United States and basically destroyed, if it weren't for him, I'm sure probably somebody else would have stepped up and took his place at all the terrible things that he did. But single-handedly, he might have been the most influential person negatively to United States, like ever, over other countries, global
Yep.
conflicts, stuff like that. It's absurd.
I'm glad that you brought RFK up because obviously I don't want to get into the politics, but this can transition us pretty well. The thing I like about RFK is that he is the only one who's talking about the chronic disease in this country. He's the only one who is talking about the food and talking about the
Yes.
pharmaceutical companies and the food
Yep.
companies. And this goes back to what you're saying about lobbying, is that we know that there's poison in the food. Doritos makes two different versions of Doritos, and a lot of people
Mhm.
don't understand this. They make a European version and they make an American version. The
Yes.
American version will have 100 ingredients. The European version will have six. And
Right.
he's the only one who has said publicly that until we can fix this chronic disease epidemic, who cares about anything else? Right?
Yeah.
Who cares about anything else? Our spending, people talk about spending this and that. What we spend in healthcare is 5x that.
Yep.
And, really I've kind of transformed my life this past year, ever since I got to school in August of last year. I
Mhm.
basically transformed my entire diet. I transformed the way I eat, and it's changed the way I see the world and how I eat,
Yeah.
uh, and I just think that that's such an important thing for us to talk about.
100%. I'm like, I would say 60-40 right now, transition wise. I've started to stay away from basically all seed oils. I don't eat
Yep.
the enriched like rice. I always get my
Yep.
imported
Yep.
rice and pasta
Yep.
because it has folic acid.
Folic acid,
Um,
which, yep.
Yep, no more, fluoride toothpaste.
Good.
I try to eat a lot of red meats and chicken,
Yep.
keep the vegetables coming. I take fiber. I do take vitamin, C and D every day.
Yep.
I made the mistake of buying massive packages from Costco. After I finished that, though, my buddy who was recently on a podcast, who's also a huge nutrition buff and exercise guy, he recommended Ancient Nutrition, the organ supplement, so I think I'm gonna
Yes.
start taking
Yes.
that,
Yep.
instead of, what I currently do. However, my 40% still includes fast food sometimes. Grace and I travel a lot, so it's hard not to eat on the go and pick something that's,
Yep.
incredibly healthy. It really is difficult, and that's one spot where the US food industry still has me by the nuts. Um,
And
uh,
that's exactly, you're exactly right. Traveling, there's no options. So I'll say my diet is pretty perfect at this point, and I will give you some some insight onto how your 60/40 can go up to 95/5. You will get to the point where you start to look at sugar and seed oils and things like that
yeah, sugar kills me.
as just disgusting, and you will get to the point where you stop craving those processed carbs, right? Like
Mhm.
you won't even. I used to always have a big thing with a crunch, right? I always wanted to have some sort of crunch in my meal, right? So
Yes.
I could eat a big bowl of rice and beef,
Mm.
and and then I'd be like, okay, so where are the chips,
Yep.
and once you kind of get that carb sugar, which really all it is just a sugar addiction, but once you
Mhm.
get over that, you won't even feel the need for it. The other big thing too is to make your house perfect, right? Because you
Yes.
can't control what other people
Yes.
do. For about $150, you can completely get rid of all Teflon and plastic
Mhm.
utensils and cooking material. You can get rid of that completely.
Yep.
You can stop buying processed things for the house, right? And that's the big one. I mean, you spend most of your life in your house. That's the only thing you can control being perfect. Now,
Yep.
yeah, you can go and you can get steak at most restaurants. You can get burgers. You can take off the bun. I do that all the time. Um, but yeah, so my diet is basically uh, mostly red meat,
Mhm.
a little bit of chicken, a little bit of fish. When it is fish, it needs to be wild caught fish,
Yeah.
because those farm raised fish are they just
Mm.
feed them all seed oil, corn, and soy.
Yep.
The chicken to me, chicken isn't really a clean animal. I would try to
Yeah,
stick.
chickens are disgusting, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would try to stick to more of the cow. Um, I eat a lot of organs too. My dad and I, we do heart. We do heart about once a week, um,
Nice.
and it is fantastic. But
Yeah,
yeah,
dude,
dude,
I don't
once
know
you
if
go
I'd
down the
get
rabbit
over that.
hole, oh yeah,
Sweetheart, that would be tough for me. I've, very particular, it's not at all about the taste, it's a texture thing for me. I could take a bite into something that's, like, mildly gelatinous, I could puke from it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
And I have been making leaps and bounds, so to speak, over the past couple years. But
yeah.
I was at a fine dining restaurant with my mom, and I bit into like a scallop, and I almost puked at the table.
Oh. Now,
But
the thing I will say is that in terms of organs, if that's your issue, I would stick with the heart because the heart is going to be is more of a muscle, right,
mhm,
than liver or kidney. Liver or kidney, I wouldn't suggest to you if you have an issue with that, because there's just no way to cook it or to prepare it. That's gonna
yes,
liver tastes disgusting. We actually just did kidney last weekend for Father's Day, which I know that sounds crazy, but that's what my dad
what
wanted.
what
Um,
animal?
uh, we actually did pork kidney, but
Human.
all the hearts and the liver that we do is all cow.
Gotcha.
But we've also done a cow kidney. Now, kidney we were able to make it kind of like a hot dog texture. That's probably a good way
Inter-
of saying
Interesting.
it. But the heart, though, you can make it a steak. I mean, you can cook it and it'll be a steak, same texture, same ordeal,
Mm,
with just a little funk to it. It'll have a little bit of that organ funk to it. I mean,
sure.
you can season it well and you can sear it, get the grill really hot, and that's the one I would recommend to you if you have an issue with the soft foods.
Yeah, it's a big texture thing for me, and that like growing up, I always had a sauce. I love a sauce on something,
Yeah.
so I love my hot sauce. My
Yep.
I
Me
stay
too.
away from ranch for the most part, um, except if I'm getting Chick-fil-A, dude. That bad boy better have some buttermilk ranch on it. I'm trying to boycott Chick-fil-A though because they're putting antibiotics back in their
Antibiotic
chicken.
chicken. Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, they were
Ugh,
for years they said they weren't going to put antibiotics in their chicken, and then now they're going to, oh well, we're going to put antibiotics, but it's the healthy antibiotics. It's none that have been shown to cause problems in humans, which I just think is just a load of crap. I mean,
yeah, dude. Yeah, and this may be a hot take, but I respect their religious beliefs and everything. But if you're hurting for money that much, open up on
yep,
Sunday.
yep,
I
yep,
don't want your
yep.
antibiotics in my
Yeah,
chicken,
I
dude.
don't want your antibiotics in chicken exactly. Have you gone down the rabbit hole of the seed oils and the sugar industry and
Oh.
the fake studies and everything like that?
Somewhat. I follow BioLane on Instagram, and I think he does a lot of shorts about randomized control trials,
Okay.
about sugar and aspartame and
Yep.
artificial sweeteners and stuff like that. But real quick, I just wanted to say at the beginning of your statement there, what you were saying, like I have a huge sugar problem.
Okay.
Dude, when I was a kid, I drank soda all the time.
Yep.
For Lent, I gave it up for 30 days, 40 days, whatever it was. And then, the following weeks I've been pretty good. I've been about one a week. I want to cut it to zero, but I do feel myself craving sugar. And I think it's because
Yep.
I give myself that leniency and have one, sometimes two a week.
Yeah.
My body is expecting that. And I wanted to tie in one other thing really quick before we get back to that sugar conversation because I want to hear
Yep.
your thoughts because I haven't probably dove into it as much quite as you have. But I wanted to bring up that the port of Baltimore that got basically blocked by the um, destruction of
The
the Francis
crash.
Scott
Yeah.
Key Bridge is the largest importer of sugar in the United States.
Are you
So I
serious? I
bet
did not know
I
that.
dude, I bet your ass they were hustling to get
Oh
that shit
yeah.
open. I
Oh
mean, I
yeah.
understand it's a major import export, but dude, sugar is
Yep.
huge here.
Yep. It's in
Some
everything.
Yeah.
It is impossible to escape it. It is
Mhm.
absolutely or almost impossible because I've escaped it, but it is really hard. It is actually disgusting when you see what sugar does. One of my good friends, we went out to lunch. He was a coworker of mine for a long time. We went out to lunch last week, and he has a 4-year-old son and a 2-year-old son, and they both go to different daycares.
Mhm.
He and his wife both work throughout the day, but he was saying that his oldest son, he's they pay good money. It's a private daycare. It's well vetted, everything like that. They pay good money to have them take care of their kid. And he was telling me this story about how a few weeks into daycare, he was throwing up red at night. He had
Oh,
throw up and it
yikes.
was red. And his wife's a nurse, so she was freaking out, calling her EMT friends, calling the hospital, like freaking out. And it wasn't blood, fortunately, but it was red. yogurt that they had fed him at the daycare. And so he was able to call the daycare and figure out exactly what brand it was. And it had 26 grams of sugar in it.
Mhm.
And he said that his son was only like 35 pounds at the time. And it is disgusting. And it's not on the daycare staff because they don't know better. Although I would
Sure.
argue that at this point you should know better, especially if you're handling children. But it says something larger about society
Mhm.
that we have allowed this to take over our lives to the point where we don't even realize we're feeding 4-year-olds 30 grams of sugar in a single sitting. And that probably wasn't even all that he had all that day.
Oh,
They
I'm
probably
sure.
gave him candy because he was misbehaving or behaving well because they give candy regardless. They probably
Mhm.
gave him candy in the door. They probably fed him. I mean, yogurt definitely wasn't the only thing he ate that day.
Sure.
And then you go home and then if your household isn't intact and healthy, then he probably had another 15, 20, 30 grams of sugar. And I
Yep.
mean, it gets to the point where you're consuming more sugar than your body weight, and you're only 4 years old. And then so then you grow up and you have a sugar addiction, and then here we are, in our 20s, and we're having a hard time kicking it. And it's just
Mhm.
because society has just forced us to ingest sugar at every stage of life.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you're well aware of why that is. I mean, so many people profit. So,
Oh,
it'll
absolutely. I
never
mean,
change
the
in
the
my opinion,
biggest
man.
the biggest Harvard study, that was ever done years and years ago was faked. I mean, and we know this now. It was faked and paid off by the big sugar industry. And they basically, what they did was they paid off the scientists to say that sugar was okay for you. And the government had some pushback, but
Yep.
the government can't do anything when they're being sponsored by big sugar. And so they forced them to put, the nutrition labels on there, which those companies didn't even want to do. When I learned that, I was disgusted that there was a time in which there was a big fight on whether or not to put nutrition labels on food. They didn't want you to know what was in it.
Dude,
It's
that
miraculous that we even know.
that shit
But
isn't
anyway,
even
so
real.
we,
It's not
yeah,
required by the
exactly, yeah,
FDA to
yeah,
list all the ingredients or even do it
yep,
correctly. It's
yep,
just an
yep.
average or a made up sum.
Yep. Yep. And so basically they paid him off to say that sugar was bad, but they had to have a scapegoat because people were getting sick and people were having heart attacks and people were getting
Mhm.
Alzheimer's and diabetes. So they had to have some sort of scapegoat, and their scapegoat was saturated fats
That's
and
right, dude. I
cholesterol. Yeah,
yes,
and
yes,
I would
I've heard.
just to kind of sum this up a little bit, going back to Breaking Bad. I'm rewatching it right now actually, and in one of the first episodes, you may not remember this, but this is kind of back whenever Walt was, kind of wasn't making his own decisions. Do you remember when Skyler gave him that low sodium, low cholesterol bacon, and
Yes.
he and
Yeah,
Walter Jr. Yep. So that's
for his
exactly what the
birthday.
early 2000s was. It was it wasn't low sugar. It was low cholesterol, low
Mhm.
sodium, and low saturated fats. And we now know that dietary cholesterol doesn't do much to your actual cholesterol, right?
Correct.
So if you have high cholesterol, lowering cholesterol isn't going to fix it. We know that saturated fats are not bad, and the reason why,
Mhm.
and that's a big deal because then that got people away from red meat and eggs, which are arguably two of the healthiest things on the planet for you. So
Phenomenal.
exactly, and sodium, which we know that salt is the number one electrolyte in your body,
Mhm.
and a life without salt is like a miserable life. I mean, you feel like crap without salt.
Yep.
So basically, they were able to pay their way to misinform us about sugar, and instead warned us about three things that we know now are not bad for you, and the majority of Americans still don't understand.
Yes. Oh, dude, it's totally ridiculous. Um, and to your point, I think we see this all through America and probably the world in all kinds of different agencies, and different types of things that are being covered up and paid for here and there. But it totally fuels the privatized healthcare system of the United States,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's what we want. Not me personally, but I'm saying you get
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's not
Yeah.
communism, but we all want, higher technology in healthcare systems. We want,
Yep.
the best privatized healthcare, in which case I can argue that the US does have phenomenal selections in that regard because the healthcare system is so large and
Yes.
monetarily driven. That is our
Yeah. It
one
better
benefit.
be. I mean, we spend 5 trillion on it a year. I mean, it better
Yeah.
be.
Right. I think that's our one benefit of the healthcare system. But the fact that we don't have universal healthcare in 2024 is fucking
Yeah,
ridiculous. If
yeah.
people wanna go
Well,
out of their own pockets and purchase more specialized healthcare, that's great. We should have healthcare
yep,
programs that sponsor that too. That's phenomenal. Everybody gets to eat at the table.
yep,
But the problem is the pharmaceutical industry wouldn't get a seat at the table if that were to
yep,
happen. They wouldn't
yep.
be able to continue producing drugs that are arguably not researched. And,
Yeah, well,
they're pushing all that shit out just to make
yeah.
more money. And then they got lobbyists with A that impacts B. And it's just a huge cycle.
I'll say two things about that. It's funny that you said the seat at the table because we have the technology currently to give a baby a gene test,
Mhm.
and you can see exactly
That's the
off of that
CRISPR?
gene test what you are in risk of. They can tell you, okay, so throughout his life, he's not going to be able to absorb calcium super well, which
Mhm.
means that over 40 years he may be subject to osteoporosis. Just an example, right?
Yeah.
We have that technology. It costs about $600, $800 to get a gene test, and it will tell you exactly what vitamins you cannot make yourself pop properly
Uh-huh.
or absorb properly, right? And they can tell you exactly what you are prone to in terms of disease. But then what happens there? That all those companies that make all those pharmaceutical drugs to treat this stuff, they're out money. So the big food, they poison us. They send us over to our friends at the hospitals, which are for profit to
Mhm.
prescribe you something, then they send you over to their friends at the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry will give you their drug. They'll make money. They'll send you back to the hospital. The hospital won't tell you that it's because of the food you're eating. They'll just tell
Mhm.
you to keep taking the drugs. They'll send you
That's
back
right.
to the food company, and you're not going to change how you're eating. And so all three of them are getting rich. They have their hand in the government, so the government isn't going to stop it. And then we're the
Mhm.
ones being poisoned and sick and dying. You know.
Yep. Yeah, it all falls to us where the people suffer.
Yep.
And that's the problem, man. The people that have the seat at the table, nobody that is there has anybody else's best interests in mind except for themselves.
Yep.
And
And it's
that's the
disgusting.
problem. Yeah, it's
We have
gross.
GMO soy. I don't know if you've gone down the whole Monsanto rabbit hole, but
Mm-mm.
basically, in between 1990 and 2010, their market share of soybean went from 10% to 95%. It's actually disgusting what they did. They made a
Yeah.
GMO soy plant seed, a
Mhm.
seed that was GMO and was resistant to Roundup, right? So you could
Wow.
spray
Uh-huh.
Roundup, glyphosate, which is terrible for you, causes so
Glyphosate.
many
Oh my
cancers, and
god.
yeah,
Links directly to my podcast that I'm releasing either this week or next week in conjunction with the hunter thing. My buddy is
yeah.
a commercial bee farmer in
Oh,
Canada,
yep, yep.
and the
Glyphosate
glyphosate
is all in honey.
huge problem.
Yes.
But something I did wanna touch on before we get too far into this, because I know we have to wrap it up soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
MTHFR and CRISPR is 2 things
Yes,
I wanted to bring
yes.
up. So MTHFR, that's the human genome sequence and where you can't produce what is it?
You can't absorb the folic acid. You can't turn folic acid into folate.
That's right, that's right. But my only concern with a human genome test, I really wanna get one. I'm working on saving up, spending the money. I got a couple other things, that gotta go first.
Yeah,
I'm worried these people are gonna fucking take my gene sequence and sell it to big pharma or big hospital, and then all not only is all my internet data out there, but so is all of my
you.
yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
I know
really
what you
my
mean.
big worry with something like
Yeah,
that because I would love to get that done. I think that is so ingenious. I can't believe that hasn't been something in the past.
yep.
Why are we not thinking about these things? But that's
Yeah,
that's my real big worry.
yeah, and I think that as long as you go from a reputable source, I mean, I don't believe that they can lie to you. I don't
Dude,
think that they can
twenty twenty
say
three and me just got in trouble for releasing, like,
that's
20,000,000 users or something like that,
That's
you
true.
know? So, like, shit like that just stresses me out. I think
Yeah,
in the ever-growing future, I think we're more and more prone to stuff like that. All of our
yeah,
internet's already out there, big tech is already finding ways to manipulate that to find out I mean,
yep,
perfect example, we were talking about it earlier. I could talk about wanting to buy a new generator. my phone is
Yeah,
listening.
and then
It's
yep,
gonna show up
yep,
on
exactly.
Instagram when I scroll in
Yep,
later, you know?
yep,
So, yeah, it's all terrible. Everything.
yep, yep. It's exactly, and that's the point where you kind of have to say, okay, I'm gonna do what's best for my household, and I'm gonna do what's best
Yeah.
for me. But you're not gonna be able to control what other people do. That's
Yep.
why, you can get the best food possible. You can get all the organic meat and organic fruits,
Mhm.
and you can get rid of microplastics, and you can stop putting a million, chemicals into your hair and your skin and things like that.
Mhm.
But that's not gonna fix the outside world, and so you kind of just have to do the best you can.
That's right, man, and that's not only a lesson with food, that's a life lesson.
Yeah,
If everybody could come around to learning that at one point or another, we'd be much better off. Dylan, I wanna thank you so much for coming on today, man. I really wanna set up something else. That did not feel like an hour. That felt
it
like
did not feel
15
like an
minutes.
hour.
Even though we got to catch up for a few minutes before, I'd love to, call you at some point. We'll play some video games together or
Yeah,
something in the near
let's do it.
future. And then B, dude, I have to set you up with something else. I want to do something a little bit longer one-on-one with you, and then I'd love to
Okay,
bring you in with one of my other buddies that's also interested, about a lot of the same, topics.
absolutely, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. For everybody out there, make sure to follow all of our social media platforms. You can find us at the Slanted Attic Experience on all of your usual podcast platforms, at Slanted Attic on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks everybody for listening. If you made it this far, we really appreciate your time and all of the things you would rather be doing than listening to this podcast.
Of
It's all good. I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, thank you, Dylan. Appreciate you, brother. And enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
course, man.